Hi, I'm Emily Roger, host of the Boiling Point podcast. My co-host, Dave Vale, and I will bring you thoughtful discussions with leaders who are positively impacting our world. This is The Boiling Point, where leadership and inspiration meet.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We have another exciting episode of The Boiling Point. Emily, what's new with you?
Oh my gosh, what's new with me? Good question. Ramping up trail running again, kind of the changing of the seasons now that it finally feels like summer, starting to put more miles on the trails, both with running and cycling and fishing lots as per usual, and just staying out and staying active. What about you? What does this time of year bring for you for activities?
Oh, good question. Well, we just, it's the change of seasons, and we're not supposed to timestamp these, but I just love this part. I don't know. I almost want, coming out of a cold winter in New Brunswick, it sometimes feels like a long winter. It's just so nice. So I don't know. It feels like everything's possible. It's just kind of, in terms of activities, I get out and run a little more, which is nice, not to the level you do. It's just it's just, and the sun's out and it's warmer. Everyone just seems happier. I don't know. It's just, it's funny how that is.
It does. It makes such a difference, even like on this past Saturday and Sunday, where it was so nice. And I ran in the morning with a group and then came home in the afternoon, and it was just too nice. So I hopped on my bike. My legs were like shot, but I'm like, I can't not be outside doing something.
I know.
My body feels it today, but I love it. It's motivating to see people out and see people doing stuff. And
So actually, we talk about sports stuff. We have the perfect guest, so it's kind of a subtle segue in. David Scott, who's going to put his camera on in a second, and I think he's okay with us calling him Scotty, and he'll tell me in a second here. We're just waiting for a video. Scotty, there he is.
There you go.
Hello, welcome to The Boiling Point.
Top of the afternoon to you all.
So Emily, are we good calling you Scotty? I've asked you that before, but that was just you and I talking together. Is that because you were introduced to me as Scotty? Your name is David Scott. I go by Dave. I'll go by whatever. Is Scotty good with you?
Scotty is perfect. I think, one of the things in sport is we love nicknames. And unfortunately, I think nicknames are becoming less and less original. The nickname now is you just stick a Y on the end.
Yeah.
So being involved in sport, I've been called Scotty, I think, my whole life, even by my students here at the university. So Scotty is perfect.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And it's funny, you're right about the nicknames, in particularly in hockey. Like there's just add a Y, Davey, Valesy, all these things, right? We've been talking a lot about sports and stuff in previous podcasts, and we can dive in there. But Emily, what I want to tell you is I got an introduction by a good friend, Ken Dobson, and he introduced me to Scotty and said, you got to come listen to him speak. And I couldn't make it for whatever reason. We got on the call, and I typically do like these half-hour calls. Well, I think we were an hour into it, and I was like, I got the calls I got to go to, but it just pulled me right in. And so we've been trying to find some ways to collaborate, and such a fascinating backstory. So and I'd love to introduce you to Scotty, Emily, and Scotty, meet Emily.
Yeah. Wonderful to meet you.
It is just great to meet you too.
So how would you what's your, we got a huge bio here, but how would you best describe, who you are and what you do, Scotty?
Oh, I think, I don't think I do anything particularly special. I mean, who am I? I mean, the first thing is I'm like a lot of people. I think I'm a husband, a dad. That's always the most important thing. Family is everything. And I work here at the University of New Brunswick. And I teach sports psychology here. And then I do a bit of consulting with different teams all around the world. And my job really is pretty simple. My job is, when I work with an NHL team or whatever, my job is simple. My job is to help us put the puck in the net at one end and keep the puck out of the net at the other end. That's what my job is. And I do a specific little part. I look after the 6 inches of ice between your 2 ears. That's my little part of the puzzle. It's no more important than any other part, but it's a part. And in sport, as I say, what happens up here, I think, is pretty important.
Yeah, well, Emily, what do you think of that? And Emily's an athlete, still out there competing. But that whole idea of the biggest battles we fight are between our 2 ears.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I always think of how we can all have the same training plan. We can all do the same work. We can do the same intervals, all that kind of stuff. But when push comes to shove of what is going to separate, you all have that same training. You're all doing the same nutrition. You're all getting the same sleep, the same rest of what happens between here. Absolutely. And that's the part that fascinates me the most, because it applies to not only just sport, but then everything.
Yeah.
How did you get into this work? Like the work outside of the university, the work with athletes?
It really started, I guess, I worked, when I came to the University of New Brunswick. I came here in 1997, and they had a very good hockey team. The men's hockey team had lost in the final of the CIS the year before. And Mike Kelly, who was the coach at that time, who's gone on to great things in the NHL, he asked me if I could help a little bit. And so that's how I got started with sport. But I really took off. I worked with the team, and then in June 1998, I can still remember this day as if it was yesterday, 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, and my phone rings in my office, and I was walking out, but being the good person that I am, I answered the phone. And it was Roger Neilson, who was the coach of the Philadelphia Flyers at that time. He was on the phone. And he called because he had the preeminent coaching seminar in hockey he held every year in Windsor, Ontario. And it was the following weekend. And he had called to see if I could come and speak, because the sports site person he had lined up couldn't come. And a young fellow who was in my class at UMB worked with Roger at his hockey schools in Lindsay, Ontario. And this young fellow said, "Hey, I know a guy, he's a pretty good talker. He does the sports psych thing, he can probably come." And so Roger called me to see if I could come the following weekend to fill in. And that was that. I went and I spoke at it, and I spoke many years at there. I went to Philadelphia after that, worked there in Philly, and that's how an Irishman ends up in hockey. It's the luck of the Irish.
Are you a hockey fan, Emily?
I wouldn't say a fan. I follow it a little bit, and yeah.
So Roger Neilson, just to give you he started using video very early on. Like, he was known for that, and he coached in Vancouver and all these places. And he's I don't know if I'm guessing he's probably in the Hall of Fame.
Yes. Yes.
And he unfortunately died, I think, of cancer at a young age, which was really sad. But he was pretty so the fact that that was your entry point, that's pretty significant in that world, right? Like, he's a well-known and still well-known
yeah.
person.
And you're absolutely right. And Roger was so innovative. And back, back then there wasn't a lot of teams that had a mental skills person. And then I did that, but I didn't stay there. Like, what I mean is I started there, and then I went and I think I earned my stripes. I kind of did it backwards. So then I worked in Melville with the Melville Millionaires in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League.
Yeah, I played against them.
I worked in Moose Jaw. I worked in Kamloops. I worked with a team in Long Beach, California, Corpus Christi, Texas, bussing it around Texas in the league down there. And so, I think I was working in Philadelphia, but I think I went back, and I needed to go back and learn about hockey and learn culture about hockey and learn about the people who play the game and coach the game and work in the game and cheer on and support and so on. So I think that stood me in pretty good stead. Yep.
And are you still with the Montreal Canadiens?
Yes, this is now my 14th year in Montreal.
14.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
yeah, so I work with the Montreal Canadiens, and I work with them, and I work with our American Hockey League team, our development team in Laval. So I work with them, and then we're gearing up now for the draft, and so I'm involved in small ways. I mean, please, I don't want you to think for 1 minute that all this centers on me. I do some of the interviews for the draft, so I'll be going to Buffalo to the combine, and then the draft is in Nashville, and so I do things like that. And then I work with a few other teams. I work in New Brunswick with the Moncton Wildcats in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. I work with the Hamilton Bulldogs in the Ontario Hockey League. I work with Dauphin in the Manitoba Hockey League, and I just come back there about 3 days ago from working with the Italian Olympic team, where one of my old coaches, Mike Keenan, who I worked with in Florida many years ago, is now coaching the Italian Olympic team, because the next Winter Olympics, as you know, in 2026 are in Italy. And so we're going to try to have a good hockey team. So I was over working with them for a few days. So I spend a lot of time in hockey, which is not bad for a guy who comes from rural Ireland and never saw ice except in an alcoholic beverage, but we're not going to go there.
Iron Mike Keenan. Oh my goodness. That's wild. But you're in other sports as well. Like I think we talked about cricket, supporting a national team, and you, so it's like so you have, multiple sports where you'd help folks.
Yeah, I'm really pleased you asked that. I mean, people say, well, how come I'm so much in hockey? Well, I'm in hockey because I'm in Canada, to tell you.
Good point.
Not like, because, I mean, we have a hockey team back in Belfast in Northern Ireland, where I come from now, but we didn't have hockey. We didn't have a rink when I was growing up. So I grew up playing cricket and rugby and football, as we called it, soccer back then. And and I still enjoy those sports very much. I work with the Bermuda cricket team right now, and for a number of years I worked with the West Indies cricket team and cricket, right? But cricket's not so big here, and hockey is the game. But the thing that's really important about all of this is that the mental skills are pretty much generic across all the sports. And I spend a fair bit of time working with businesses, because those mental skills are very, very similar as well. Like, people in business have bad days, things are not going well, and people in sport have bad days when things are going well. Or people in business have very talented people, but those people can't come to meetings in time, or they can't, they don't buy into what's happening. And it's the same thing in sport. Like, very talented players, but they don't train. When the going gets tough, they fold the tent and go home. And so there's lots of these things, I think, apply across life. And so, yeah, I work in sport, but I think what we're really looking at are life skills.
Yeah. What do you think are some of those most important life skills?
Oh, well, for me, I think there's a number of, there's a number of foundational skills. So in sport, we think, well, we need, like, to have success, you got to have excellence. And that's got to be excellence, even if you're playing pickup hockey. Compared to the other teams, if you're going to be successful, you need to be excellent compared to them. And you need to be excellent in a number of areas, things like physical, mental, technical. You got to have good off ice or off the field habits. You got to be a good teammate. So those are the pillars. But you see, those pillars, need to be built on something, right? So for me, the foundational mental skills are things like humility, right? So I think it's really important for people to be humble. That is, if you already know everything in business and you're an athlete and you already know everything, right? Well, why do you need to listen to the coach? why do you need to listen to your teammates? You already know everything. So for me, one of the main things is being humble. Like, I think character is more important than talent. And that gets me into trouble. Don't get me wrong. Talent is extremely important. But what good is talent if you don't turn up? Right? Right. So the example I give is, hopefully this never happens to anybody, but let's say you have to have a heart transplant, right? You're getting a heart transplant and you have a choice of two surgeons. You can have the greatest surgeon in the world. They are so talented and they're going to do a marvelous job if they turn up. They're not always dependable. Mm-hmm. And if they don't turn up, you're dead. But if they do turn up, they're going to do a great job. As long as nobody's parked in their parking spot either, because if everything's not right, they're going to pout and they're going to sulk and things are going to go badly. Or you can pick person number B, the second surgeon. They're very good. They're not the greatest of all time, but they're very good, right? And they are completely dependable. Never miss, no matter what happens, they are there. They turn up and they get the job done. Now, which one are you going to pick? Talent or character? I bet you you're going to go for character, right? 100%. Yeah. So So I mean, it's great when you get the Sidney Crosbys and the Conor McDavids of this world, where you have great talent and great character, right? But I think for a lot of people, like character, particularly humility, is really important. So that's one thing. And can I give you a couple more?
Yeah,
I would love it.
I think in sport, as in life, mental toughness is incredibly important. That is being resilient, having the ability to bounce back. So when you've lost a big contract or things aren't going well, or you've lost a game or whatever, mental toughness, the ability to keep going when things aren't going very well. But where does that mental toughness come from? Well, you see, here's the thing. You see, motivation comes and goes, right? So, like, let's take trail running, right? Let's go for a run on the trails. It's the middle of January, right? It's minus 35 degrees out there. Would you go for a run on the trail in your swimwear? No. But for $1 million, you would, right? Because now you're motivated. Now you're motivated. So when you're motivated, people do things. But the problem is motivation comes and goes, right? So when you go to see the dentist, right, you've got the toothache and you make an appointment to see the dentist. So you go in to see her and you see her at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. How motivated do you think she is to see you? 4:30 on a Friday on a beautiful summer weekend. She has seen 200 people that week already, smelt their bad breath. It's now coming up on 4:30. She's hoping you don't come, right? I mean, she's not jumping up and down. She's not particularly motivated for you to come, but you don't have a thing to worry about, because when you come, she's going to do a fantastic job. Why? Because she's got really good habits. And so for me, in sport as in life, even with my students here at the university, develop really good habits. So when you don't want to get out of bed, or it's minus 25 outside and you go for a run every morning, you just can't help yourself. It's a habit, right? Mm-hmm. Up you get, out you go, and you get it done. And so I think that's one of the things that's really important in sport, that is having really, really good habits, right? And so the habits will carry you. And the third, and I've got lots of things, but the big three is process. Focus on the process, right? The score will take care of itself. I say this to my students all the time. Don't worry about your grade. Please don't worry about your grade. You'll get one. I guarantee you'll get a grade of some description. Like when you go up in an airplane, one of the things you never have to worry about is landing. You're coming down. They won't leave you up there forever. You're going to land. In other words, there will be a score. There will be an outcome. You will get a grade of some description. But if you want the good grade, you want the grade that you you want that high grade. Oh, that's different. Then you got to put the work in. See, there's a process then, right? You got to do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and the score takes care of itself. So many people in sport, so many students, so many people in life, they focus on the outcome and not the process. Put in the performance, you get the result. Simple as that. So those are the three things that we really try to focus on.
How does it resonate with you, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, that fully resonates. It's funny how even the example you used of the dentist. So before I became a full-time athlete in my previous kind of career, well, I was a dental hygienist. And so I definitely know that 4:30 Friday feeling. But yeah, that all just resonates very, very, very strongly with me.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that happens too in sport, and it happens in life as well, when you focus on the result or the outcome and not the process, certainly in sport, you're focusing on something that you don't have total control over, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have control over the outcome, not completely. And so therefore, you're focused on something you don't control. It's not a bit wonder you get anxious before games. It's not a bit wonder you get stressed because you don't control everything. Why don't you focus on the things that you can control? Your effort, your attitude, your nutrition, right? Like turning your phone off at night so you can get a good night's sleep. Do those things. Doesn't guarantee the outcome, but it gives a pretty good chance of getting the outcome that you want. So many people focus on the outcome and they forget the process part.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say when I was racing and I got into sport at a late age.
Yeah.
I didn't start riding a bike until the age of 27 and then was racing at the elite level when I was 30. And I actually did some work with a colleague of yours, Dr. Ryan Hamilton.
Yes.
And, for me, it was like, I loved to train. I did not love racing. It was like racing was like an excuse or reason for me to train because everything for most part was like in my control when I was training.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But the thing I would say is even when you compete, right, you're still in control of your performance, right? Right. And it's I mean, sometimes, as I say, when you focus on the actual result, what happens is things become a threat rather than a challenge. Right. So let me give you a simple example. And I'm going to make an announcement here today. This is going to go around the world here in a second. But I'm going to play professional hockey in the National Hockey League next season.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to be the first 60-year-old Irish rookie to play in the National Hockey League. And I play on the left wing in my old timers hockey team. And the reason that teams really like me is I do two things very, very well. I have never been on the ice for a goal against. So no team has ever scored while I've been on the ice, right? And the second thing I do is I keep my shift length very short, about 7 seconds. I go out one door, along the boards and in the other door. Right. And the reason I do that is I really like my teammates. They're great. And I don't want to let them down. Like, I just don't want to screw up. And I'm a terrible player. And so if you don't want to make a mistake when you play hockey, what's the last thing you want when you're on the ice is the puck. Right. So I've never touched the puck. I've never turned the puck over in my life. Not once. So because I've never had it. But there is a chance by accident that you might get it. So that's why I keep my shift length really short, 7 seconds. And so what I'm getting at is when you're so scared of the result, you're threatened by making a mistake. You're threatened by the outcome. The sport that you love now becomes a threat rather than a challenge. And so people play hockey like me. They play so as to not screw up. So 2-1 hockey game, game 7, Stanley Cup final, third period, a minute to go. You're leading 2-1. Face off in your end. You lose this face-off and the other team score, tie the game and go on and win the Stanley Cup, your name is mud the rest of your life. And there are some players who go, I don't want out there. That's not for me. It's too threatening. Whereas the best athletes in the world are rolling their sleeves up and going, now bring that on. That's what I've trained for. That's everything I've done is leading to this moment. This is the opportunity and I've been waiting for. So seeing things as an opportunity rather than a threat, I think makes a big, big difference.
I love that. I love that distinction. And it's so true about, I mean, I've experienced it myself, at the level I played, which was, not necessarily not the NHL, but just, being nervous about screwing up, and that's the focus. And what it got me thinking about as we're talking here today, Scott, I think we've talked about this previously, but what is it about now where there's suddenly seems to be a much better appreciation for the mental side of the game? Because when I was younger, I think there was some discussion, but there was no mental coaches out there. And now it's just a very accepted that, yes, to work with, whether golf, mixed martial arts, hockey, football, biking, whatever, having a mental coach. Are you noticing that, like, as a trend shifted, you think, in the last little while?
Well, I think it has shifted for a number of reasons. I think in terms of mental health, if I can make the distinction, say, between mental health and mental skills to facilitate performance, one of the things I think that happens in sport is we sometimes forget that sport isn't a law unto itself. Sport operates within society, right? So there is a reason why we don't have fights to the death, right? Because society will not allow that, right? And so in society, mental health has become a much, much bigger issue, and thank goodness, and rightly so. Mm-hmm. And sport sometimes become late to the party, but we are influenced by what's happening in society. And there have been some people who have stood up, come out and said, hey, I've had mental health issues, right? Doesn't make me a bad person, doesn't make me a weak person. Like I've had issues. And so I think that has really, really helped. So I think there's been a move towards seeing mental health as the serious issue that it is for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. In terms of mental skills, in most sports now, but let me just use the National Hockey League as an example, but I think this is true in university sports across the board. Regardless of what some irate or upset fans might say, every team in the National Hockey League is very well coached, extremely well coached, right? Mm-hmm. So coaching is a bit of a wash, really, right? It's not like a team's got a coach like me and another team's got Scotty Bowman. Like, they're all good coaches. Every team in the National Hockey League now is fit. Teams don't win games simply because, well, they're just so much fitter, right? Everybody's fit now, right? Everybody eats healthy, right? So what separates these teams apart? They've all got great players. They've all got great coaches. They all eat healthy, wonderful facilities. They're all fit. Once again, there's a reason why we play the games. And it's, once again, there's 6 inches of ice between your 2 ears. Mm. How you deal with those things are extremely important, all right? And I think people have always said like that. What was it? Well, I can't remember now. Was it Yogi Berra said that what was it? 50, half the game of baseball is mental or something, and the other 80% is, well, no, 50% physical and the other 80% is mental, or some crazy little thing. People have always talked about how important mental skills, but mental skills were always have a positive thought and believe in yourself, and then away you go. They're fine. Right? And there was no sort of skill teaching. So I think people like myself and people like Ryan would say, hey, we're mental skills people, right? We teach skills, right? And these are skills that need to be learned and developed.
Emily, what was your experience with Ryan? Like how did that support you?
Yeah, it was interesting because I actually went to see him at a time when I was racing at the elite level, and I was doing really well, had just won worlds, and I didn't know if I wanted it badly enough. And so it was this thing of feeling like I should want this more. And it's interesting. So I remember him saying to me, like, Emily, the position that you are in right now, which is why I think I was able to race so well, was because I didn't see it as a threat. I think I saw it as an opportunity, and then I got that opportunity, and it's like, okay, now what? And I remember him saying to me how he's worked with athletes who would like cut off their finger at the knuckle in order to get where the level that I am at or was at. And then here I was thinking like, gosh, like, do I want to be here? Is this like really what I want? So yeah, I think I maybe went to him for different reasons than maybe some people do.
You must hear stuff like that, Scotty?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting, like about what happens, in your mind is you often wonder how come rookies do so well? Like, somebody comes in, no pressure on them, and they perform great, right? And one of the reasons for that is, well, they really don't worry about failure because there's no shame in failing because nobody expects them to do anything else, right? And so they kind of give it a go. But then what happens then is once you're a successful athlete, then this whole thing of expectation now arises. And so, I mean, you're a world champion, you're one of the top athletes in the world. Well, there's an expectation from yourself and from other people. And of course, the problem with expectations is expectations are really black and white. Like, we expect you to win. We expect you to perform well. What the words that they don't say, of course, that go with that is we expect or else, right? Like that's the right. We expect you to do well, or else you're going to feel shame. You're going to feel humility, you're going to be humiliated. You're going to feel embarrassed. Your family's going to be let down, right? And people are going, oh my gosh. And that's where things get heavy. And I think that's where people lose the love of the sport, And that's why you just marvel at people like Roger Federer, who, right. I mean, gosh, something, I think that guy just loves tennis. And you can hear people saying, oh, I wish that person would retire now because I don't want to see them, right? That's right. And in some ways that's sad, like, because I think it's wonderful when people just keep playing because it's not the winning or the losing. I just love this sport, right? And I just want to have fun. It's when people have expectations that becomes heavy. You get yourself in a dark place. And sometimes it can be really difficult to get out of there.
It's really life skill. It is life skills, isn't it? Right? Because it's the same thing, with business, right? If you can, instead of enjoying the journey, sometimes if you're so focused on a result, in my own experience, maybe that's a revenue target and you're not hitting it, you're not appreciating all the things that are happening because you missed this, goal you set, probably because the process isn't strong, right? Like I haven't set it up. Anyways, I'm just thinking all the application to life in general.
But let me just jump in there because I think you make a great point. Because you see, what happens is that when something's a threat, like, gosh, we got to make this, we got to bring in this certain amount of income. We've got to do this, right? And if we don't, we're in trouble, right? So now there's a threat in place here. Now, so now you're stressed. You start cutting corners. You're not as productive as you need to be, and guess what? You don't reach your target. On the other hand, you're stressed and you cut corners and you do all that and you reach your target, okay? But it's not joy you feel, it's relief. It's relief that nothing bad happened here, right? Which is sad as well, that you play sport and when good things happen, all you feel is relief.
Right.
I went out on the ice and I didn't make a mistake. Oh, thank goodness, right? Which is a sad way to live, isn't it? You know, If you think about it, you just go through life feeling relief because you don't screw up. You know?
Have you ever not worked with someone because they didn't have the humility that you'd need them to have to benefit from the work?
Oh, I think it happens. Oh, no, yeah, I mean, it happens for sure. Like, let me give you a simple little example. Like, and they change. But let's take young players joining a sport, like young players to the Major League Baseball or basketball or hockey. Okay, so I'm a really talented player. I've been drafted high. I know I'm pretty talented, right? In fact, I am so good that I don't need to get a good night's sleep. Like, I can eat pizza and drink beer and still play great. Sidney Crosby can't, but I can, right? And there's a bit of a learning curve, right? Like, and some players learn it, and then some players don't. And part of the reason why they don't learn it is, well, the coach didn't like me. I wasn't given a chance, right? I didn't get the lucky break. And so one of the things that we try to do with the humility part is develop an internal locus of control. So in other words, you have influence over the outcome. You're not a victim here. It's not by chance, right? So, for young hockey players, who's responsible for your ice time? Well, you are, right? Not the coach, right? You do this, and this, eat this, and this, train like this, you'll get what you deserve. If you don't, then you'll get what you deserve. But then some people will turn around and blame the coach, like, well, or I didn't do well on the exam. Well, why didn't you do well? Well, this guy Scott was teaching the class. He's got this funny accent. He speaks too quickly, and I didn't take down the good notes. The fact that they never came to class, right? Or the fact that, right, they didn't study for the exam, but somehow it's my fault. And so I think to succeed, most of those players learn that, hey, wait a minute, I got to take responsibility here. And I'm accountable, and I got to develop self-discipline. But sadly, some people will not learn that life lesson. And I mean, the reason I don't play in the National Hockey League, and seriously, and I'm being serious now, the reason that Wayne Gretzky is recognized as the best player in the world and not me, it's my parents' fault. I mean, seriously, I was born in Ireland. There wasn't an ice rink in the whole of Ireland. What chance did I have? It was their fault that I'm not the world's greatest hockey player. It's all their fault, right? And that sometimes happens where people will just not take responsibility and learn what they need to learn.
Yeah. Now I see why you have been I'm trying to I just I love listening to you. I could listen to you forever. And now I know why you were voted one of the most popular professors at UMB. And I think that even Maclean's magazine, you won, either professor of what was it that you won?
They did Maclean's do a thing on universities and they highlight popular professors, and then the Globe and Mail did a thing on professors, supposedly, not much in my case, but the other ones that applied, outstanding professors, right? I mean, but the other professors were all outstanding. For me, it cost me $50, to get that, or to go out to pay for people to say nice things about me. So I wouldn't
Right.
read too much into what other people say about me. It cost me a lot of money.
I doubt that.
People say nice things.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? Something you both have in common is speaking, and Emily is starting to step into that speaking circuit a little more intentionally. Would that be fair to say, Emily?
I think, yeah, doing it more now. Yes. Yep.
And Scotty speaks, and both of you would like to help promote getting more opportunities to speak to the crowds you want. But there's a really, kind of, I mean, I think a lot of times good speaking and is around good storytelling, right? And clearly, Scotty, you love storytelling.
Yes, but let me come back to something else. I think Emily's got a tremendous advantage over me. And I'm being serious now, believe it or not. I talk a good game. I haven't done it. Right? Like, I mean, like I'm an academic. I mean, I would never give up my job here at the University of New Brunswick. I love teaching, love doing research. Right? So when I stand up and speak, right, I'm saying, I know somebody who did this and it worked for them. Whereas the person who's actually been out in the arena, the person who's actually been there and done it and has been to the greatest heights and the lowest of despair, right? I can only go, well, wow, that must have been really tough for you. Whereas that person can really, right? So I think it's wonderful that people who've been there and done that and now share those lessons with others. I think they've got an amazing message. Yeah, I'm a storyteller about this, but I don't have what she has, like, which is, and I say that hopefully with great humility and respect, because I meet people who say, well, I met this fellow one time. He goes, well, I only played one game in the National Hockey League. I played one game. And I'm looking at him going, oh my gosh, that is so amazing, right? Because I play old timers and I only get to play when some guys don't turn up. I'm that bad. And you were in the show. She's been in the show. She's been there, done that. The result doesn't matter. She's been there. And so I think I storytell, but she comes from a more life experience thing. I don't know if you'd agree with me or not.
I think that there's different sides to both of it for sure. And I think that, for me, being able to work with so many phenomenal psychologists and counselors and everything is being able to then find the words to how it is that I am feeling in the moment and then be able to share it. And it's interesting, Dave, that you brought up the public speaking, because Scotty, when you mentioned the feeling of relief when it is over, I thought of this morning, I'm getting ready for a fairly big presentation very soon. And just this morning, I thought, oh, I can't wait till this is over. And even just that for me, what is that about? And why am I choosing to see it that way instead of choosing to see it as an opportunity, which I've been really trying to do. But what part of me, even in the story that I'm telling myself about it, is looking at it that it's going to be a relief, as if there's some way that I'm going to fail or not, when it's not. I'm going up and just being me and speaking. And so, yeah, that was kind of a like, poof, that hit me in the face and I needed to hear that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that works for me, I'm very lucky. I keep portraying this, but sometimes it's absolutely wonderful to be Irish, because at least in my experience, you don't hear people saying, gosh, the Irish are so smart. That was the, right? I don't know if you can see, I have a little thing here on my wall, like a coach of mine said many years ago, and I don't know where he got it from, and I think other people have copied it, or maybe he copied it from somebody else, but he said this in the newspaper. When you read it, it says, I played a lot of rugby, and it says, Dave Scott doesn't know the meaning of the word fear. Of course, if you look at his grades, you'll realize that he doesn't know the meaning of a lot of words, right? So when I come to public speak, like, I just tell people, like, I'm Irish, right? So set the bar extremely low. Like, if I could actually string a sentence together here, you can consider it a success. But what I'm saying is, I understand what you're getting at. Like, it's, for me, I have a lot of fun when I speak, right? And I make mistakes all over the place, right? But I'm Irish. It's part of the
I just need to work on my Irish accent.
Yeah, but you see, you're different, because I look at you and I go, I don't know. You see, Dave, when I look at it, I go, now there's somebody I'm going to learn from. Here's going to be a really insightful person. I'm going to take lots of notes. Nobody ever takes a note when I speak, because I don't say anything insightful.
I totally disagree. I've talked to you a few times and I take stuff away, and you know that for sure. And Emily's taking something away from the conversation today, which is really cool.
And I've got notes. I've got notes, and they're
nice.
for myself.
Yeah, she was taking notes. Well done. But before we go there, I just so someone wants to talk to you and hire you, Scotty, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, I'm a very simple person to get a hold of, right? Because I'm going to show you something that you probably have never seen before. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You know what this is?
Oh, flip phone, Motorola.
Just phone you.
That's what I use.
Yeah.
So I'm a very simple person.
Okay.
It's email.
Yeah.
Scotty, Scotty, at unb.ca. Right? Please don't ask me what Twitter is or what's up or whatever it is, right?
WhatsApp. Yeah.
I try to, but I do that deliberately in a way, because for me, sport is simple. It's coaches, sports psychologists, your brain that makes it complicated. And so I actually try to live what I preach. I try to keep my life simple, right? I have a phone, a flip-up phone, because I want to make phone calls. I have a computer that does other things. I try to keep life simple. So the easiest way to get a hold of me, old-fashioned email, Scotty at umb.ca. I will get back to you right away.
Even how you say your email address, like I went through a speaker's course and they talk about, chunking stuff up so people can actually retain it. Anyways, he did that brilliantly. They would be this Vox training. They would be so impressed. So we do, Scotty, we do takeaways at the end. Emily's got notes. You going to go first?
Oh, I can go. Yeah, Yeah, I'm kind of like stumped. I feel, I don't even know what I feel right now. There's a lot of processing happening here. I think just going back to that, just that importance of, and I mean, it's something that I try and live out every single day. It is like, what are those things that make athletes good athletes? And then how can we then apply them to every single thing that we are doing in life? And like, for me, it was like, my favorite time in a race or my favorite time in an ultra marathon is like 6.5 hours in, when the going is tough. Like for me, I'm like, that is where the race starts, because I get to tap into fully of what is up here. And so even now, like in my business life and with other things that I'm pursuing, it is like that, when the going gets tough, it's like, no, Emily, that's actually, that's where you thrive in. That's where you want to be. So be more okay with it and see it more as an opportunity.
Yep. No, I think
Beautiful.
That's good advice. Wow.
Beautiful.
Yep.
My takeaway, Scotty, would be, I just love the idea of humility and how it plays out and the importance of it at any stage of your life and when you see someone who's achieved really great things and still has a level of humility, it's just such a impressive characteristic, I think, or for me, we don't have time for it now, but I just remember when I was a kid or I guess, kind of late teens, meeting Lanny McDonald after he spoke at an event, Special Olympics event. And he came down and sat down and bought me and my buddy a beer and said, "How are you guys?" And his humility was just like, he was more interested in us. You know what I mean? It was quite shocking. And it's 30 years later, I still remember that. It was humility. And it's just so brilliant. So people know how to get a hold of you. I'm really hoping that you'll continue to agree for us to collaborate, Scotty, because I think your stories need to be heard by more people, and I'm hoping Vision Coaching can support that in some way. I'm really glad you and Emily connected.
Yes.
And Emily's going to give us what's it called? Extra or what?
Yeah, a little extra. Yeah. Dr. David Scott, thank you. This was a real treat to have you on here. And so we will list all of David Scott's information, including just that email address.
Not the flip phone.
He didn't even give out the flip phone number.
I know. I thought he was going to give us your phone number. I was like, wow, that's dedication.
Yeah, but I'd have to remember the number before I could give it to you.
That's what's great about those smartphones is they got them all in there.
But we're going to leave his email address in the show notes. And the best place to find the show notes is on our website, boilingpointpodcast.com. We, not Dr. David Scott, are active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And we will put this video version of the podcast on YouTube and Facebook. And of course, our podcasts are all available on all of your favorite podcast platforms.
There we go. Bye, everybody.
There you have it.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye now.
Talk soon.
Thank you for listening. Follow or subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app or visit boilingpointpodcast.com for more.